So what's up people, and welcome to another Alita Battle Angel video. Now this one is an unplanned one, and after thinking about it I decided to make this video to ask a question to many of the viewers. And this is with regards to the fall. And when I'm talking about the fall, I mean that extra information that came in the DVD, which talked about the Terraformer Wars and how Earth fell and how Zalem was the remaining Sky City with Iron City underneath. And I was thinking about the information that came up. Now, I'm not going to talk about that in detail because of the fact that I've already made a video about this extra piece of information. But there was something that bugged me when I started thinking about this once again, and so today I just want to make a quick video to talk about this. Now, as you remember, this piece of information of course talked about how Earth expanded, and of course there became tension between the colonies of Mars and the home world of Earth due to the resources, and because of that the Terraformer Wars began. And it escalated so much that both planets started using weapons of mass destruction. You could see that in this scene here.
In the grand expansion across the galaxies, man had mastered matter and energy and time itself, but learned no wisdom and found no peace. For with the mastery of matter and energy came fearsome weapons.
And since that scene was of Mars, it seemed that Earth was sending either asteroids or nuclear weapons down to the surface of Mars. And of course Mars eventually retaliated with one of the most devastating attacks, which was to release a biotoxin, a nanovirus that basically devastated and annihilated the majority of the Earth's population, with Zalem and Iron City being one of the few areas that survived. And it seemed to have survived because, from what I can understand, Zalem created some sort of containment. I would think with a city that size that it would be a force field, but for all I know, maybe they all hid in a quarantined area until the war ended, although that sounds really strange because then they would be vulnerable to a physical attack. But in any case, they somehow sealed themselves away from this virus.
The Sky City of Zalem was sealed to prevent the virus from getting in, while the disease spread around the globe.
And so what it indicated was Zalem and possibly Iron City was somehow shielded from this nanovirus, and because of that they were able to survive. And so the last battle occurred in Zalem, or near Zalem, to see if they can take down the city. And of course, since it survived, it seemed like Mars failed to do so. Now later in that same video, they mentioned that survivors from the rest of the world eventually gathered to Iron City. And because, and this is the important part, Zalem, and from what I can see, Iron City was separated from the infection that was still existing around the world. They were able to survive in that area for 300 years. Now, please tell me if that's really true based upon this part of the video.
Refugees from every place on Earth converged on Iron City under the shadow of Zalem. Isolated from the plague, the Zalans ruled the world. The surface people grew their food and worked their factories. In return, they gave them power, medicine, technology, and the rule of law. It was a cruel system, but the beacon of Zalem gave hope.
Now, it is true that this video only mentioned Zalem as being isolated from the plague. However, considering the fact that this plague basically took down the entire Earth's population so quickly, indicated that it was highly contagious and it was extremely aggressive and very, very lethal. In which case, unless Iron City was also shielded from the plague, I would think that it would be a ghost town, even 300 years later, because of the fact that it seemed like many of the areas way outside in the Badlands still had issues with regards to going out there. And I would think that the remains of the plague may still exist out in the Badlands. And so this indicated that at least the city of Zalem was somehow shielded, and more likely the city of Zalem and the city of Iron City was shielded from the plague. And so this made a little bit of sense with regards to then why the final battle took place in Zalem, where all these soldiers came to attack. Now, this is interesting because of the fact that, of course, in the movie, Hugo mentioned that in the final battle, all of the other cities were taken down. But if it was due to a plague, I would have expected that they went down earlier, and then the forces came in to try to take down the final city of Zalem. Now, this could be explained that Hugo really didn't remember his history all that well, or that history was rewritten to make it sound better. However, that there was that small discrepancy. However, that isn't the discrepancy that I was worried about. The thing that bugged me was this final scene at the end of the movie.
Defense ring!
Finish the mission. Destroy Zalem.
Now, originally, when I saw this, and I mentioned this in my video with regards to the fall, I thought that the mission was to go infiltrate Zalem and take down the barrier that was protecting Iron City and Zalem from the plague so that the plague can come in and eventually destroy the population of Zalem. But something bugged me with regards to this. You know, I mentioned that if they were able to take down the shields, the Mars army can go back and just wait for the plague to destroy them. And probably since Mars gave the soldiers some sort of immunity, you know, they could still survive even if the plague came in. However, I was thinking about this and wondering, if they already had penetrated into Iron City, they at least penetrated the defense barrier of Iron City. And if that's the case, they didn't need to take down the barrier to bring in the virus. All they had to do was physically carry it in themselves. I mean, if they had containers of the virus and they basically spread it around in Iron City, then at the minimum, even if Zalem was still contained away from Iron City will become a no livable zone, an unlivable zone. And because of that, 300 years later, you wouldn't expect to see a city there because the survivors wouldn't be able to survive there. Basically, Iron City will become part of the Badlands. Now, the other thing is that if both Iron City and Zalem were basically protected by the same containment field, by releasing it in Iron City, you're also releasing it into Zalem as well. And by having these, Kunstler's already climbing up the tube indicated that they were already within the population, and all they had to do was release the virus and run away. So then the only thing I could think of was that maybe Zalem was the only area that was, protected. But then what happened to the people of Iron City, and why were they able to survive after the war, as the story says? And of course, the infiltration scene will become a little bit more difficult to understand at that point, because you not only see the Kunstlers going up the tube, but you also see a bunch of ships running around inside the area. So why didn't the ships attack Zalem? Why were they attacking Iron City? Iron City was already exposed. All they had to do was release the plague there, and they're done. Why didn't they focus their attention on Zalem? And if Alita was trying to go up the tube, what prevented her from being able to eventually reach Zalem and release the plague there? I mean, she is, after all, one of the most advanced soldiers and fighting combat warriors ever to have existed. I mean, even Doc Ido said that in the movie. And so she had more than enough capability to go up. Now, one possibility is that the shield was so strong that if they ran into it, they would be immediately destroyed. The question is, if that was the case, why did they need defense rings in the first place? Now, it is true in the comic, there are shields that are that strong, and maybe they needed to turn them on at certain times. But if that was the case, were there additional shields that protected the city from physical attack that was separate from the shields that quarantined the city from the viral attack? Or were they the same shield, in which case how could they turn them on and off at intervals? Right? And okay, so now I'm gonna start pulling strings and trying to go to the extreme of saying, okay, they had other shields that could protect them from the physical attacks. On the other hand, could they shield within those transport tubes? In which case, since the transport tube got destroyed or split open, why didn't they travel up inside the transport tube? Maybe there was defenses there. Now you're starting to grasp at straws to try to make an explanation. But in any case, this isn't like Star Wars where they had to go down to lower the shield so that the ships can physically come in. In this case, all they were creating the shields were to isolate themselves from the virus. So if they were already in Iron City and very close to Zalem, why didn't they release the virus at that point? And that's what bugs me. For all I can understand, there could have been a lot easier way for the Mars Battalion to destroy Earth. All they had to do is, if they were that close, release a concentrated form of the virus and then get the hell out of there and wait for the entire, at least the Iron City population to come down so that they don't have to worry about them, and then come back and destroy Zalem. So what happened? One last thing is, for the comic readers, we know one other thing with regards to the Kunstlers coming up. They were all wearing berserker bodies. In which case, there is one last power that the Berserker body can do. And in fact, in the comic, the Venusians created the Berserker body for that one last possible power. So if they had containers of devastating plagues and they had that Berserker body which could do that one last power, how did Zalem survive? Why didn't that happen? Now, the one possibility is that because Nova created the collapsor rounds, they were able to destroy the Kunstler team because of the fact that they were wearing Berserker bodies. But now you better have a really good explanation of how all of this became that way. Now you're having, shields that can contain the plague. You have stronger shields that protect you against the Kunstlers, and now Nova can somehow have these collapsor rounds ready and somehow be able to hit these extremely well-trained mercenaries that were extremely agile and take them out using the collapsor rounds, which were supposed to be extremely rare to get. So how did this fall occur? If they were already that close, shouldn't they have been able to win the war using the plague by bringing the plague to that location? Anyway, that is the question I wanted to ask. And yeah, it bugs me. And I know a lot of you understand this a lot better than I do. And so I wanted to bring this up so that, as always, you can provide some information that will make this make more sense. And so thank you very much in advance to everyone for your comments. And I'm hoping that we get this resolved. Anyway, that's it for this video. So thank you very much for watching. Thank you very much for commenting. And until the next video, as always, Jaya, nice day, everyone.